Real quick, I want to give a big shout out to Mazda of North Miami for providing me the vehicle I was able to show you guys today. These guys have a wide variety of vehicles ranging from the Miata all the way to the all-new Mazda CX-90. They also have some nice deals going on right now with the majority of their cars in inventory, so if you're looking for a nice, affordable luxury car, I would highly recommend you guys check out Mazda of North Miami.
ND Miata has been out for quite some time. In fact, it's been out for almost 10 years at this point, and Mazda has made some updates with the Miata throughout its years. We are now currently in the third refresh of the Miata, known as the ND3. So what's changed? Well, nothing much. Mainly not really much. In fact, I'm going to show you the key features that are different rather than the ND2, and see if it's going to be determined whether you're going to get an ND3 or perhaps an ND2. Right, so now I'm sitting in the ND3 MX-5. So what's different in here? There's really not much. In fact, it's so subtle, you have to really nitpick it and actually to know the real difference between the ND2 and the ND3. For one, mechanically, it's exactly the same thing. You still have 181 horsepower, you still rev at 7,500 RPM, you still have a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic if you're boring. So really nothing has changed into that aspect. But the technology has changed, and this was something that it was needed for the Miata. For one, now you do have the all-new infotainment system that you get with the other Mazda products and stuff. The Miata was, but believe it or not, the very last model that they had currently on sale with the old infotainment system. Now you do have this new infotainment system, and I really like the upgrade. It makes this car feel a little bit newer inside. Not necessarily premium, as you do have a lot of cheap materials in here, but it's simple. And that's one thing that Mazda's formula is always going to stay with the Miata. And I hope for the new generation that's going to come out eventually within the next couple of years or so, I hope they keep that same philosophy like they did with the ND3. So what else do you also have? What else is new in here? The reverse camera actually is a lot newer. You do have a much higher resolution now. Before, it used to be complete crap. It's a lot better now. And what you also do have in the bottom, instead of your old USB-A ports, it's switched to USB-C. So it's a tiny little subtle difference, but that's really it what you get in the Miata. I mean, you still have the same old steering wheel. You still have your original infotainment controls right here down below. I didn't expect them to change that at all. And you still have a little bit of storage around here. This car does not have a lot of storage. And if you're expecting to have any type of storage capacity in a Miata, you may want to look elsewhere. The Miata is really a car that is meant for fun. It's meant to feel like a go-kart when you're driving around, and that's the purpose of it. And you can really tell it feels like a go-kart in here. This thing is really, really small. For me, being 6 feet tall, I thankfully fit, but that's pretty much about the max size that you would really want to sit inside here. If you're claustrophobic in here, you may question a little bit if you would want to get a Miata or so. I personally don't care. I love this car like crazy. So for me, I have no issues at all sitting here. And also, this being a club, you do have some cheaper materials in here. You don't have like a full leather panel here. You do have body color panels inside, which actually kind of makes the car feel a little bit more special inside. And this also isn't a premium package, or it doesn't have the performance pack that the club typically does, like with the BBS wheels, the Brembo brakes, also with something involved with the suspension. I believe it was Bilstein suspension, if I'm not mistaken. And also the Recaro seats. This does not have Recaro seats at all. It's just your regular cloth seats, but this one does have both speakers. And if really you just want a little bit of just basic performance in here with nice speakers, this thing being $34,000, it's not terrible, but it's something to be at least adequate of. This car has very bare minimum features in here, and that's really all you need inside of your Miata. In terms of talking about back seats, there's none. And the passenger seat actually is a tad bit tighter in there rather than the driver's seats, of course, because you have the steering wheel in here and everything. They prioritize and making sure the driver is going to be as comfortable as they can. It's such a small package. So that's something to just keep really in mind of. And also another thing to keep in mind, with the soft top, if you do get a soft top like this particular one, it is rather very easy to use. It's simply a little lever here that you just pull. The windows automatically come down, and literally all you have to do after that is that. And that's how simple it is. If you want to, let's say, bring the windows back up, there you go. If you want to say you want to bring back your top of the Miata, it's again very simple. There's a lever just right between the driver and passenger seat. You pull it up and it just goes in right away. It's rather simple to use and it makes the job a lot easier. And under the hood, you're going to have a 2-liter 4-cylinder that produces 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. This is all mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, or you could opt out with a 6-speed automatic if you really don't like stick. And to open the trunk, you can use the key or this little button that you're going to have just right on the side. And all you're going to have in terms of trunk space is 4.5 cubic feet of space. Now, for a car this small, it is actually rather impressive to see how large this trunk is, because I was thinking it was going to be a lot smaller. But Miatas, they surprised me. All right, so as we're taking off with the ND3 Miata, I will tell you right away, there's really not much of a difference you're going to feel off the bat to the ND2. That's something that I just want to say. Mechanically, everything is still relatively the same. Nothing really changed, and nothing does have to change. I mean, Mazda already updated the engine to rev at 7,500 RPM, so that has 181 horsepower. And honestly, it's perfect for what you need it for. I mean, this is a car that you're gonna have fun with, you're gonna enjoy driving, you're able to take the top down and everything like that. That is the purpose of the Miata. It's not meant to be a powerhouse by any means whatsoever. And another benefit to that is also just with how everything is so simple. Now, comparing to the GR86, I've never driven a GR86, but I have driven an FRS for a couple months. So I have a little bit more experience with those things. So with the Miata, you are going to notice right away that it is a lot more tail heavy, especially the RF. So with how being light this thing is, and obviously really no weight being in the back, obviously, it's a very tail heavy car. And also another thing, the way Mazda has tuned the suspension, this car has a significant amount of body roll, even with how stiff this car is. I mean, granted, it is a very light car. So the way Mazda has tuned the suspension really shows at least how much body roll this car could have around the corners and everything. And with that body roll, it's going to be prone to have a little bit of play in the rear end. And if that's something that you're into, great, that is a benefit. But if it's something that you're also trying to track at the same time, this could be a little bit of a problem. The thing is that Mazda didn't tune this car to go out for racing. It is more than capable of doing that, absolutely, but it's something that Mazda didn't prioritize. They rather prioritize the driving experience that you're going to have driving a Miata per se. So not particularly in terms of the track, but in terms of taking this to the canyon. And I will say, I love this car so much, dude. It puts a smile to my face every time. And even rev matching, it's so easy to do it. It's a very forgiving car. And just taking it around the corner, obviously not too hard because it's a dealer's car. God, it's so easy to drive. This is something that you have to enjoy and appreciate what Mazda has done for the Miata. It is that easy to drive for you to just enjoy everything about the car without breaking your bank. And yes, don't get me wrong, with inflation and everything like that, the Miata is not the cheapest counter anymore, unfortunately. I mean, this club specifically, this is not even like the opted out club where you have the BBS wheels or the Bilstein shocks, none of that. This is a base club. This thing is $34,000. And if you want to opt to even more options, you even want a club RF per se, you're going to expect to purchase this thing for around the high $30,000 range, or even 40 grand depending. So that's something that, yes, it could break your bank in terms of if that's what you don't want to spend your money on. Now, if you don't really care about all the options and everything and you want something like this, for 34 grand, it's not terrible, but unfortunately with inflation and everything, this car does suffer with that premium price tag. I mean, the same thing goes for the GR86. Yes, you can start out the GR86 for around $30,000, but as your options go by, it's topping out at around $36,000. So it's slightly cheaper than a fully loaded Miata, but not by much. The best car that I can say that comes with a lot of options, comes with all the features and stuff, and it's still less than 30, and you can still get it for less than 35 grand, is probably something like the Elantra N. But you're not going to get an experience that you'll get in a Miata in an Elantra N. those are two completely different categories of vehicles. And though the Elantra N, it is fun, it is a very fun car to drive, it is very obnoxious at the same time, it's not going to give you the same experience that you're going to get with this car. And same thing when it goes to the GR86. You're not going to get the same experience from an Elantra N between the GR86 and the Miata. So that's something that you're just going to have to sit and debate about. Now, if you don't mind how small this thing is, you're not going to have a problem with this car. Now, if you're planning on actually getting a daily driver, I wouldn't suggest even a Miata myself. I personally wouldn't daily a Miata myself. I mean, it does have enough trunk space for a single person and everything like that, but in the end of the day, it's not particularly going to be the most practical, especially in a road trip. It's going to definitely make you uncomfortable. But if those things are things that you don't really care about, and that's not what you're particularly picky about, you're not going to be disappointed with the Miata. And that's one thing that I will always say, in the Miata, to me, will always be the answer if you want something fun, you want something affordable, and something dependable. And that's something that Mazda has always kept the philosophy with the Miata. And this thing being a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, doesn't have crazy technology in here. It's very simple to operate, it's very easy to drive, and it's very forgiving. You honestly can't beat it. And maintenance is definitely going to be easier on a Miata rather than GR86. So just keep in mind of that. So without further ado, let's get into the final conclusion. Let's get to closing.
The Miata is always going to hold a special place into my heart, just given the fact of the sole purpose of the car is just to be fun to drive. And even though this mild refresh is nothing major, just a couple new headlights and taillights and a new screen, it is a definite welcoming update for the Miata, and it still drives like something you're never going to experience nowadays with an actual driver's car. So if you're interested in the Miata, give the ND3 a shot. I promise it's worth it.